Hello, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I'm with the Gulfport School District. And today I'm here to talk about Standard RL.4.5, comparing poetry, prose, and plays. First up, let's talk about poetry, the elements of poems. The first thing you're going to notice about poems is the structural elements, or how the poem is organized. Each line of a poem is called a verse, and then those verses that are grouped together are called stanzas. Poems also use a lot of figurative language, and they can also be any length. Next, in poems, you're going to see sound elements. Meter is one where it's a set of patterns of strong and weak syllables in each verse. Also, you have rhythm, which is like beats in a song. It's those regular patterns that you can hear when someone is reading. And then rhyme. A lot of poems have rhyming words, which is the repeat of the same ending in different words. So let's look at an example of a poem with the different structural elements. Okay, so we have Sick by Shel Silverstein. I cannot go to school today, said little Peggy Ann McKay. I have the measles and the mumps, a gash, a rash, and purple bumps. My mouth is wet, my throat is dry. I'm going blind in my right eye. My tonsils are as big as rocks. I've counted 16 chicken pox. And then there's one more, that's 17. And don't you think my face looks green? My leg is cut, my eyes are blue. It might be the instamatic flu. I cough and sneeze and gasp and choke. I'm sure my left leg is broke. My hip hurts when I move my chin. My belly button's caving in. My back is wrenched, my ankle sprain. My appendix pains each time it rains. My nose is cold, my toes are numb. I have a sliver in my thumb. My neck is stiff, my voice is weak. I can hardly whisper when I speak. My tongue is filling up my mouth. I think my hair is falling out. My elbow's bent, my spine ain't straight. My temperature is 108. My brain is shrunk, I cannot hear. There's a hole inside my ear. I have a hangnail, and my heart is what? What's that? What's that you say? You say today is Saturday? Goodbye. I'm going out to play. So with our poem, you can hear those rhyming words, and then you also can see how it's organized, how it's set up, and it's basically one long stanza. I just have it broken up into two different parts, but it's one long stanza, and you can see how it's written in verses. It's not just straight sentences. Okay, so now let's compare this to our next piece, which is plays. Okay, so now we're going to compare and look at the elements of plays or a drama. And a drama is meant to be performed on a stage in front of an audience. And your actors are going to read from a script. Okay, so those structural elements look a lot different than what you would see in a poem. Okay, so your scripts are going to have dialogues, which are the words that the characters speak. Also, you have a cast of characters, so you know who's going to be in the play. And then the setting is going to be at the beginning to tell you where the play is occurring, what time of day, and what's going on. Also, you have stage directions, which let the actors know how they need to act, speak, and what is happening on stage as they're performing the play. So we're going to look at an example of our poem that has now been turned into a play. Okay, so now we have a list of characters. We see Peggy and her mom. And then we also can infer that the setting is at home. Doesn't necessarily say it at the beginning, but we can make an inference that the poem is at home. So you can see a little bit of a difference about what is happening in the story. You have Mom and you have Peggy. So Peggy, Mom, I can't go to school today. Oh no, sweetie, why not? Where do I begin? Do you have the flu? To start, my tonsils are as big as rocks, and I've counted 16 chicken pox. My goodness, And then in parentheses, you see where it says interrupts mom. That's a stage direction. Yeah, and I think my left leg is broken, and my neck is stiff, and my voice is beginning to feel weak. Oh no, honey, but it's my heart. Honey, it's Saturday. What? Well, that's great news. I'm going outside to ride my new bike. Goodbye. So with that, you can see that those lines that the characters are reading look a lot different than what we saw in the poem, where those lines were considered verses and they were written in a stanza. Ours are just written as a line and how it would be performed on stage. Also, you see those stage directions that are in parentheses to let us know how the character is going to be acting while they're on stage. And then sometimes they also include how the character needs to talk, how the character needs to move, what direction are they going into. Okay, so now let's take the same story or the same poem, the same play, and let's see what it looks like in prose. Okay, so when we talk about prose, we're talking about the normal writing or speaking in a story. So think about your novels, your short stories. Those are examples of prose. Okay, so when we talk about structural elements, they look a lot different than what you see in a play and also in a poem. Prose is organized in paragraphs. You have a narrator, just like how you kind of had a narrator in a poem, but you definitely have a narrator when you're looking at a play. But the narrator reveals the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions. You don't have those stage directions, but you can look at the story and you can see how the character feels, how the character is acting in the story, because you can read those clues or those character traits that you see. Also, it has the setting of a story, and there is also dialogue between the characters. So let's look at the example. Okay, it's the same story, but it's also written in the way prose would be written. So we can see those paragraphs, and we also see how it's going to be organized. This morning, when my alarm went off, I immediately wanted to go back to bed. I was so tired. I decided to lay in bed for as long as possible. Then suddenly I heard my mom's voice and thought, oh no, I better get out of bed before she gets mad. I jumped out of bed, still not wanting to go to school, and decided to tell my mom all the reasons why I should not go to school today. I was a little nervous, but I knew if I could make myself look sick, my mom would surely believe me. I wrinkled my face and slouched my shoulders and slowly, very, very slowly, walked into the kitchen. When I saw my mom, I immediately said, there's no way I can go to school today. When she asked why, my mouth became a volcano and I began to spit out all of my illnesses. I told her that my tonsils were as big as rocks and that I've already counted 17 chicken pox. I've coughed and sneezed all morning. I told her my left leg is probably broken, although I guess I did walk to the kitchen. I whispered to her and told her my neck was stiff and my voice was weak. My mother's face began to look pretty concerned, and I thought, yes, she believes me. So I thought it'd be best to tell her a few more reasons just to be sure. And my temperature is 108. I gasped as I gave a little cough. I couldn't believe it. When I went to tell her about my heart, she interrupted me and said, honey, it's Saturday. I couldn't believe it, and within 5 seconds, I was running outside so I could ride my new bike. I love weekends. Okay, so with our story, you can see a lot of the same things that were in the poem and in the play, but now we just turned it into an actual story. We see how she's feeling. We get a little bit more of an idea of her emotions and what's actually really going on behind the scenes before the story starts. Because before we didn't know that she was still in the bed. Now we know that She was in the bed and she was thinking about what she was going to tell mom. And then we see a little bit more of her actions that we didn't see in the other story, the other two examples before. So let's wrap up what we've seen with our three different texts. Things to remember. Okay, poems. Poems are going to be written in lines and stanzas. They can be any length. They use a lot of figurative language. They have rhyme or they have rhythm. So you're going to see those things in there. A play or a drama is going to have a cast of characters. It tells a story through the characters. It has dialogue, and it's read from a script. So you're also going to see stage directions as well. And then with our last one, you're going to see prose. Written in complete sentences, organized in paragraphs. Sometimes you might even have chapters if it's a chapter book. But it also can have dialogue as well, which is just basically conversation between the characters. So these are ways that you can compare the three types of stories.